What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into a Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I'm your host, Robbie Haytayan. Joined with me are my three lovely co-hosts. You guys know them at this point: Seamus Zarlingo, Justin Lowe, and Andrew Quinn. Guys, I don't know what we just watched for the last 8 minutes of that basketball game, but I'll tell you what, it was something. The Boston Celtics drop what is technically their first loss of the NBA preseason of their 2025-2026 campaign on the road in Toronto, Canada. 107-105 was your final score from Scotiabank Arena, guys. It was an interesting one, to say the least. I'm sure we're all going to have our thoughts and opinions and takeaways from this game, guys. So let's not waste any time here. Let's get right into it. And, some positives, some negatives. I know, obviously, the last, 8 minutes of that game is going to cause some topic of conversation, but I do think there's some positives to pull away from this one. Justin, we can start with you because you do look visibly upset.
We should have started 5 minutes ago, but I was not happy.
No. I know a positive you can pull, Justin. I'm just telling you, 5 minutes ago, we could have been on 5 minutes ago because the Celtics were not in overtime.
That's true.
We're not in overtime.
Seamus was begging for overtime for some reason, and I was begging for not to see that lineup for another 5 minutes.
Seamus is a basketball junkie. He appreciates every level of the game.
I wanted those guys to have 5 more minutes.
I wanted that to be over with as soon as
you got to be a sicko to appreciate that level. You got to be a different type of
listen, those guys didn't even look. That was a summer league lineup. Those are my guys from Vegas. They didn't look that bad in Vegas. They were 4-1 in Vegas. They weren't that bad in Vegas.
The NBA stage.
Yeah, here's the thing. On a serious note, Missoula has to throw those guys in on training camp deals at the end of the game. 11 fourth quarter turnovers for the Celtics. They finished the night with 29 turnovers, which is super uncharacteristic for them, even for preseason. But 11 of those were in the fourth quarter by guys that you're not going to likely see up in Boston throughout the season. A couple two-way guys you might see, but in terms of consistent regular NBA minutes, you're probably not going to see those guys a whole hell of a lot. But in terms of guys who are going to see a lot of time in Boston this year, you got great performances once again out of them. Chris Boucher in his homecoming to Toronto, 19 points tonight, nearly got a double-double, 9 rebounds as well. Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons both reinstated into the lineup tonight, combined for 37 points. We'll get into their performances a little later on. Luka Garza, again off the bench, 12 and 6, continues to set screens at a pretty good level, as well as kind of be a presence around the rim. Listen, the guys who are going to have minutes for this team played very well tonight. Boucher was a plus 23 in a 2-point loss. The Celtics had a 27-point lead tonight. That is as mature, that is as professional, and that is the best way I can calmly put it. Because if, compared to my 5 minutes ago recap of this game. But, again, from the guys that you're going to see consistently through the regular season, much, much better game in the first half than you saw in the second half tonight. So I wouldn't put too much, eyeballs on that 27-point deficit dissipating. But at the same time, loss is a loss here in the preseason.
Well, this happened last year. And I got to say, I'm a little upset we didn't see overtime. I'm a little upset. Okay, it's Friday night. I understand.
Justin's not having it.
Preseason overtime on a Friday night. I understand the sentiment. Well, first of all, I wanted us to win. Because here's what happened.
Seamus, there was no way if we had an extra 5 minutes we were going to win that game. Did you not see how the last 3 possessions went? No, Seamus, I'm sorry. I love the Celtics. Celtics are the balls.
We almost won regardless. Basketball's a game of runs. But here's what I'm thinking, though, at the end of the game, right? Because you guys might be a little ahead of me, right? You guys might be a little ahead of me sometimes when we're all watching the games. And I look at our group chat, and Rob, you texted, "Damn it." And I go, okay, we're either in overtime right now or we lost. And I was like,
ahead of me.
was like, come on, overtime. Let's do this overtime. So I was really rooting for overtime. And then Mugbo goes to the rim, does his little shimmy shake Hakeem Olajuwon, and lays it up and in. And I'm going, oh, I guess we lose.
Max Shulga from full court. We got it.
And then Drew Carter for the win. And it's like, and it drops by 10 feet. It drops 10 feet in front of the rim. This game, I got to say, I'm not really fazed by the result at the end of the night. I would love to see a Celtics win. I'm never of the nature of wanting to see a Celtics loss or any, when we're watching any team, when you're associated with a particular side, you never want to see that side lose in any scenario, because I thought at the end of the night, the way the Raptors were celebrating, the Celtics were definitely not celebrating at the end of the night, but the way the Raptors were celebrating, what differentiated that win for them aside from a regular season win, right? What differentiated a regular season win and a preseason win for them in that particular moment? Nothing. It was, yes, this preseason game will not count on the regular season schedule at the end of the season when the Raptors are either in the playoffs or not, right? But ultimately, the way the entire team was celebrating on court and celebrating a win and celebrating a triumphant moment in the preseason, that's ultimately something we wanted to see the Celtics do tonight. And maybe not in that way, right? We didn't want to see the Celtics come out with a game winner. At the end, it would have been nice, but with a 27-point lead, you want to just walk out the door and go, all right, we just whooped your ass. We're not celebrating like we just won the national championship, because that is exactly how the Raptors celebrated at the end of the night. And I looked at it and I went, this would be a classic spot to say as a Celtics analyst, to say, oh, look at the Raptors. They don't win too often. And of course, when they do in any spot, including the preseason, they celebrate in this way. But I really did think that was a good moment for them, especially for a team that's trying to build themselves into relevancy, as the Raptors are. And we all know these guys at the end of the bench on both the Raptors roster and the Celtics roster, because the Raptors, all of their starters didn't play tonight. So it was all the Raptors bench. These guys are trying to gain opportunities in the NBA. So at the end of the night, when all those guys are celebrating and all those guys make plays, whether or not they're on the Celtics or Raptors, that means something, even though the record doesn't mean something to the grand scheme of both of these teams at the end of the season. This game does mean something for those guys, and it even means something for these guys potentially going on to their next opportunity. I think last year, I think back to last year, really, the Celtics and the Raptors played the same style of game up in Toronto. The Celtics had a huge lead right before half. Toronto dwindled it down, and right before the end of the game, both benches were in. That was the game where Jordan Walsh went to the rim, and he was very aggressive, and everybody went, ooh, Jordan Walsh, and then he got his shot blocked at the rim, basically for the win for the Raptors. But Brandon Carlson was on that team, right, for the Raptors, and he went on to win an NBA title with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, was he in the Thunder rotation? No, but he was picked up by the best team in the NBA. And that's part of the point, is he performed well in that game for the Raptors last year against the Celtics and found himself an opportunity on the Thunder, and then witnessed a championship squad and their birth. So that's why these moments can be a little bit bigger than what they seem. And that's why I want to see these guys play an extra 5 minutes, right? I want to see some extra competition, even if it means sacrificing a little bit of a Friday night. Come on, the night is young, folks. The night is young. But the Celtics doesn't really, I would say for the starters in this game, it was not the best showing early. It turned into their best showing in the mid portion of the game, especially when Anthony Simons got going in the game in the third quarter. But then it was a classic, once you take the starters out, once you take the real rotation out, and again, a couple of those guys were out tonight. No Sam Hauser, no Jaylen Brown, no Derek White, and no Jordan Walsh. And all those guys were out with rest except for Walsh. He was dealing with a groin issue. Yeah. But the Celtics, outside of those three guys, their normal rotation guys, they were holding down the fort throughout the game, except when they exited the game and you had Baylor Shireman out there along with all the other guys who will be in main, which that Baylor Shireman moment, probably not the best for Shireman to be out there in that time, right? But
it's a trigger word.
But I will say, in that particular moment late in the game, the bench squad completely let the rope free. And that's why we cannot, in my estimate here of trajectory of the Celtics, this 27-point comeback by the Raptors is not really going to mean much for the regular season when that comes around, because when you have Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Simons, all those guys in the lineup, something like that is not going to happen, especially against this Raptors squad. And I'll point out too, both of these squads will not exist in 2 weeks. Some of these guys are going to be cut. Some of these guys will not play at all in the NBA regular season. And this is almost it really is a grand exhibition in the preseason. That's what it is.
Right.
I don't know if you can say that though. Like, we had one of the greatest teams of all time, and we constantly blew 22-point leads. I was thinking
that.
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. And the capacity at which we blew it. I mean, we couldn't even get the ball up the court, for Christ's sakes. They went on an 11-0 run, by the way, in less than a minute. In less than a minute, they went on an 11-0 run. Celtics couldn't get the ball up the court. Joe Mazzulla had to use one of his timeouts, and you know how that kills him. Mm-hmm. So, Seamus, I disagree. I could not have gone another 5 minutes watching that. No way. I'm sorry. I love the Celtics. I love basketball. And you know me, I love preseason summer league, but I could not bear another 5 minutes of that. I couldn't. I couldn't.
I gotta say, I mean, I was hoping for it to get a little bit better. But also at the same time,
I agree. I would hope it got better, but I don't think it would have got.
It was not trending in the right direction. You're correct on that. But especially at the end of the game there, I'm going, I mean, that's kind of our only, that's the only outlet here. That's the only outlet where the Celtics actually win comfortably. And we go, oh, we didn't do well, or at least the Celtics didn't do well in the fourth quarter and into the third, but we finished well in overtime. That exclamation point never happens. Right. And even if we pulled it out, right, even if the final score was, say, 107-105 Celtics, at the end of the fourth, we're going, oh, yeah, the Celtics won, but they didn't do it in pretty fashion whatsoever. But if overtime were to happen and the Celtics go ahead by 12, maybe the narrative is a little bit different. So that's the argument for overtime as well. Just saying.
Okay. I can respect you for that. I can respect.
But again, it's a good job.
You did a good job defending your point. You worked the Jerry. But I think honestly, it is a preseason game. Like you can't really overreact to this. Like it's just, that's the truth. And these preseason games are for learning your roster, for seeing what you're good at, what you're bad at, and how are we going to learn from our mistakes and get better the next game. So yes, it does suck to lose these games, and you know, no matter what the circumstance is, like you want to see guys competing, you want to see guys playing at a high level, you want to see guys putting their best foot forward. But when it comes down, it's a preseason game. I will say, like the first half, I was very pleased with how it went. Yeah, I think there's a couple like guys like Josh Minot, like Boucher, like who are really like standing out and are being like, hey, Joe, you got to play me. And so it's good to see guys that are really taking their role, because I think in the beginning or the first preseason game, we don't know where we're going with this roster. Like we don't know necessarily who's going to start, who's going to get minutes, who's going to get minutes here. So to see guys that are really stepping into their role and being like, Joe, you got to play me. Like you can't mess around. Like that's something good to see, because it just shows that we're going to have a more identity and we know who's going to really make an impact. So it's like we're not searching for guys as much anymore. Like we're like, these are our guys. I like the defensive efforts though. I liked our ability to close out. I liked our ability to like every shot for the most part, especially from Boucher and Minot. It's a contest. It's a heavy contest. I like that. I like the defensive intensity. You know, there's still some things we got to clean up from a technical standpoint and from everything, but I don't think it's a problem. I think Joe's going to fix it. And I think that we're going to figure it out. It's preseason, so no need to overreact. And there's a lot of good things to pull from it. So I think that's what we should focus on and just find ways to build on top of it. That's where we're at right now.
I also think that it would be unfair to this team to not give them, I mean, it's the second game preseason, first of all, right? Like I'm not overreacting here, but I also think in the grand scheme of thing of the build up of this team, it's going to take a little bit of time, right? Like this isn't a team like we were accustomed to last year. And even in 2024, they came out on fire, but like, this is a new core. It's a new unit. It's a new system, right? It might take them, 20 games to really start gelling, start meshing, start it's a process. They're starting really from ground zero here. And I don't want to undervalue that when we're talking about this team in the early stages, because we are such in the early stages.
Right.
As for tonight, I agree with you guys, and especially you, Andrew, in terms of, Minot and Boucher. It's so obvious that those two guys are going to be impact players for this team. I think the Boucher signing could be like, we were asking and thinking the Al Horford replacement. We thought it was going to be Xavier Tillman. I see a lot of similarities. I know, right? Ooh, trigger warning. Talk about Billy Simon, and Tillman's the other one. I see a lot of similarities in their game, his ability to stretch the floor, his length, his switchability. Like, I really, really have become a fan of him, and he showed out tonight. I thought he was awesome. He was phenomenal on the cutting. Like, his timing on the cuts were just great in crashing the glass. Like, I love his energy. I love what he brings. I think this could be a guy you could have on the roster for the next 2-3 years, if he wants to be here. And then obviously, we'll get more into Simons and Pritchard. I like that. Garza, Justin, your man, he's showing me something. I really like him. I thought he looked much better today. I think he looked a little bit more in his spots and quicker to his spots and quicker when he's in his spots. That's a good sign. So a lot of good things. Again, I'll be honest about the blown lead, because I guess elephant in the room. It was like watching a JV team playing the varsity team. But like, you're not going to see those guys on the court. Obviously, I'm with you, Seamus. I'm with you, Justin. I'm with you, Andrew. You want to see them win. You want to see them look good. You want to see them, you want to see them be the ones with the triumphant victory. But it's like, okay, you blew a lead with your fourth string in. It was pretty putrid. And it's like, let's leave that at that, right? It's a preseason. Like, let's not look anything more into that. In my eyes, but I mean, let's not sugarcoat anything. That was pretty bad. Like, right. It was pretty bad to watch just from like a fan perspective, right? Like, let's watch basketball tonight. Like, that was rough. That was
when they couldn't get the ball up the court in the final 2 minutes, and Joe had to call a timeout. Like, that is like I don't know. I don't know what more you can do.
Well, I mean, when you have a bunch of new guys to the NBA, and then you want to play like this fast-paced basketball, it's like their brains are already moving 1,000 miles per hour, and then you throw them on the court, telling them to go really tell them to go really fast. I mean, it's just like it's a recipe for a disaster in some cases. It's
what it reminded me of? It reminded me of I don't know if anybody played AAU or like you see AAU. It's right like when you're in an AAU tournament and you're like the bottom of the tournament, like that you really shouldn't be in this tournament, and then you run into the team that's like they got scouts on the court and they're pressing you, and you literally can't and you just can't get the ball past half court.
In a lot of ways, I resonate with it.
It's like I know what you're going through, Max Shoga. I understand it's tough.
Yeah, this happens.
I get it.
So I understand. Yeah, I understand that. And the whole 27-point lead and the 11 turnovers in the fourth quarter, like that's all going to overshadow, what the actual Celtics were able to do tonight. Now I understand that Toronto had a majority of their players out, and some people could sit here and say, "Ooh, like that made the difference." But I think, and you talk about Boucher, and boy, I'll tell you, when he hit that first shot tonight, I said, oh, gosh, he's going to have a good game. That first shot, that kind of fall away and one rainbow shot went into the rafters. Feeling comfortable on his old rims that he spent 7 years in a championship playing on. I think you're getting what I like about the guys who are actually going to be playing for the Celtics, like Minot and Boucher and Garza, is like that's back-to-back really solid games for them. And we're not just saying that because, okay, these are the guys that we have to deal with now. They're the new guys. They have to play. They really do look really solid out there in their roles, and it's going to take more than just 2 preseason games, win or loss, for them to be acclimated into their new roles and establishments. Because kind of mentioned it, and Seamus, you kind of mentioned it in the group chat when, came to signing Josh Minot, it was like, okay, minimum deal out in Minnesota versus minimum deal out in Boston. What's the difference? Minimum deal out in Minnesota might have a better chance at competing right now, but minimum chance in Boston, I'm going to get to compete and play, right? And that's a big factor for these guys. So I think them coming in, understanding that they are going to get their opportunities and they need to be ready. It's not stay ready or get ready or whatever for this group. Like, everybody needs to be ready this year to play, and everybody's going to get their opportunities. So, some nights it's going to be Boucher. Other nights it's going to be Minot, and you just hope that they can kind of slot in when those opportunities are presented themselves.
And I think that's the best way to put it too with this team, right? I think you summed that up beautifully, where it's like, you don't know who it's going to be, but there's opportunity and you got to take advantage of that opportunity. I really, really like that. It feels a little like we've already done it, but let's hop into the lead tracker because, I'm sorry. And it pains me. I thought we were going to have another sea of green tonight, guys. And we did, except it was a sea of green until it wasn't. And you can see here, obviously, for the Celtics guys, largest lead of the night, 27. In Toronto's was a measly little 3. However, Toronto, they were able to walk away with the win tonight, guys. No sea of green, but it's like it's a sea of green that, it was high tide and it went low tide really quick. And, but again, I know we've touched based on it a little bit in terms of what happened on that run, but, anything other, it's tough because like the turnovers, but like for you guys, is there anything else you can put your finger on the downfall or here again, there's 2 parts to this thing. Maybe you want to talk about the uptick, right? I'm not, there is an uptick in that whole thing.
Can we specify how many turnovers there were on the night? 28 by the Celtics. 28. That's not a typo, folks. 28. 28. I have to say it so many times because it sounds so ludicrous. 28 turnovers. That is when you guys were describing, or especially you, Rob, you were describing the AAU scenario, right? 28 turnovers. That is an AAU number. 28 turnovers in a game is absolutely ridiculous. Now, the Celtics in the second half, Justin, you pointed it out in our group chat, 10 of those came in the fourth quarter, and I'm quite certain they racked up a couple more after that text, including one by RJ Lewis and I hate to single out RJ Lewis because it was all of those players down the stretch, but there was one particular possession where the Celtics, I believe it was 105. It was right before the Raptors' possession to win the game. The Celtics own the possession with no shot clock, right? The Celtics go sprinting down the floor, and you just knew, everybody knew after watching the last, Justin, you iterated it, or you touched on it earlier, and I'm reiterating it now, is we knew what was coming, right? We knew what was coming. And I know, I'm a supporter of overtime, but we saw the trend at that point in time. We saw the trend. And when the Celtics were coming up the floor, we all knew, oh, that ball's going to be thrown away. But that was the secondary group. Right. That was the group who will appear in Maine this season. As for the Celtics and that uptick, that real sea of green, the Celtics absolutely dominated the Raptors in the paint tonight. Absolutely dominated them. And I think what we saw throughout the game, and specifically hitting on Anthony Simons, but I'm sure we'll hit on him in a little bit here, but we saw, and in the grand scheme of things, not just Simons, but he's involved heavily in this conversation. We saw the Celtics, this group tonight, especially with Caires, Simons, and Pritchard in. They weren't in the other night. This was their first preseason game. They got a little bit more comfortable with each other throughout the game, and the sets looked a little more clean than early on. Early on, it just felt like everybody was new, right? It was like, everybody's shaking everybody's hand and go, oh, hello, nice to meet you, right? And it just didn't really seem like that fluid motion was happening on the floor. Yet, as the game went on, we saw more of that fluid motion. We're going to have to see the entire squad. And did we talk about this before the broadcast or not? When will the Celtics bring out the entirety of their lineup? Because I believe in the preseason, the Celtics could go, just give the main guys as much run as possible in these games, because we'll have a lot of opportunity in the regular season to actually get going with our lineup. But then on the other hand, I look at it and go, well, completely new lineup. You kind of want to use this time before the season to
I agree.
I don't want to say reinsert some of these guys, but insert some of these guys into the lineup and mesh this group together. Tonight, we didn't see a full lineup. In Memphis, we didn't see a full lineup. Will we see one at the TD Garden? I'm not so certain, but the first 2 returns of the regular group, right? It looks pretty good. And now let's see it together. Because I'm thinking, especially with that sea of green and the sea of green from last game, disregarding the fourth quarter of this game and even the back half, the third quarter, the Celtics look pretty good offensively. And defensively, there are some lapses. But the team owns some depth. They look good offensively. I'm just saying the signs are there right now for this team to be not as bad as people think.
Well, the
At least not. Oh, we're out of the playoffs, out of the play-in.
Right.
I don't think
I
that's
agree.
in the cards.
No, I don't
Unless
think that's in the
injuries, of
cards.
course. Want to knock on wood on that one.
Thanks for that. I don't think so. I think Andrew's muted.
I am muted, but I think that's a reason why you do put your.
I agree. I agree.
Because there is actually a chance to, make an impact, and you want to start off the season hot and potentially catch momentum and really already have that foundation like settled and found. But Justin, you too, yeah.
So it's like I see both points, Seamus. Like you make really good points, like for both sides of that argument. I do think I fall more on the side of you got to figure out who that is, and you have to kind of roll with it. There's going to be, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be nights where you have to kind of rely on certain guys like Minot and Garza and Boucher and those newer guys. But at the same time, like I think the Celtics have to use one of these final 2 preseason games at home and kind of see what a regular season game would look like. And even if it's just for half, even if it's just for a first half, run an 8, 9, 10-man rotation instead of a 12 to 13, 14-man rotation. Like, see what that looks like. Slot Haytayan in that starting 5. That seems like where the Celtics are going per reports, not officially yet. And obviously we need to see a lot more out of Haytayan, which we'll get to in a little bit. But like, see what these scenarios look like. And I think the Celtics have to explore that because yes, there is a lot of open opportunity here in Boston now, but there's also been so much change in such a short amount of time where I do feel as if the Celtics need to kind of at least get a ballpark estimate of who's going to be consistently in the rotation and who's going to be out.
Yeah,
we're talking about the starting lineup, who's going to be in the starting lineup. What about the entirety of the rotation, the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 man, right? Like we're still kind of in and out on those guys. Is Hugo going to be in there? Is Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman? Like, where does Sam Hauser slide? Is Sam going to be a starter? Is he going to be on the bench? Like, we don't know what role players we even have yet on a consistent, night to night 82 game season basis. Right. So I do think the Celtics, in my opinion, need to use at least one of these final 2 games, as I mentioned, even if it's just for a half, and run it like it's Celtics versus Cavs in the regular season. Whether that means Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen play or not, that doesn't matter. You're not focused on other teams during the preseason, right? Like, you're not game planning necessarily for Donovan Mitchell in game 3 of the preseason, right? You're going out there for your own team to figure out what you have and how you need to approach it. So, I kind of look for that in these final 2 games. At least one of these final 2 games is you got to try to figure something out where, put a scenario in where it's the regular season and you have to put out a lineup no matter who it's against.
I so agree.
No, I was going to say, first of all,
that's it.
Well,
I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to interrupt.
No. I might go on a tangent, so I was like, I don't know here, but I was going to say, well, let's talk about the rotation real quick, right?
Yeah,
who's going to be in the rotation? Because I believe right now, as currently constructed, the Celtics have 8 guys. 8 guys that they could play. Jaylen Brown, yes, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Anthony Simons, Sam Hauser, Neemias Queta, Chris Boucher, and Luka Garza. After that, wait. Yep, you're right. I missed Minot in there, so you could add him in there.
9. So you got 9.
That's 9. Now, do we trust Shireman, Walsh, Tillman, Gonzalez to
not after tonight? Maybe
maybe
Gonzalez.
So like MLB.
It's like, who's the consistent guys within that
right.
bottom
So like
tier
in baseball, you have some players that can't hit lefties. Like, they're abysmal against lefties. They're not an everyday player.
Throw
right?
Rev in there and just
exactly. So
Rev
I look at those next 4 as, and maybe it's too early on mine, but I mean, he's really impressed me. He's really, really impressed me. I look at those next 4 as they're not our everyday guys, right? Where you can find time for them.
But wait,
no, so sorry. No. Mina is part of that everyday crew, that 9-man everyday crew.
I was
And then
gonna
under
say,
that,
boy.
no, I think I'm not
been our
switching up.
best
I'm not
player.
switching up. Yeah, no. And then I think under that is these are utility pieces that you can plug and play. You got to test them out.
Well, also I look at this and go, positionally as well, it matters. Boucher, I think what we've seen out of Boucher thus far, he's easily in the top half of the rotation.
Should be
But
starting.
then Keita, Garza, Tillman, right? What's a little odd about this trio is over the summer we're saying Keita. But then in the preseason and even leading up to the preseason, it's like, Garza, he's really in shape. It could be the next Luke Cornett. And then Tillman goes out there and his knee looks great. None of these bigs look amazing at all, really.
That's
not even to the point where, say a couple of years ago, we were like, Luke Cornett, say you and I, Rob, we're going back and forth on Luke Cornett. It's like that was a totally different level because that was, can Luke Cornett play within the top 10 of a championship team? This is
right.
Obviously this is actually higher level, speaking on the starters of the Celtics, but it's lower level in terms of, can these guys even play?
Well, you know what I think
even play these guys? Because say Keita and Tillman, Keita barely played last year. Tillman barely played last year, and of course, the injuries for Tillman, that was something. But Keita, very inconsistent play last year because at the beginning of the year, I had a good run, and we all remember that game against the Warriors. That was almost like the Celtics' first real game last year against a real opponent. The Warriors started out the season well. Of course, they had that little, they went, they had that little dip, but they started out the season well. Keita, the Warriors completely picked him apart, and then we didn't see him for a while, right? So even him, Tillman didn't really play last year. Keita didn't really play last year. Garza didn't play for the Timberwolves. The question, I'm looking at the bigs right now going, we don't know who's starting, but we don't even know if these guys can really play.
Well, I think it is. I think the harsh reality might be that you might, with this core, it might be like that. And all you're asking for is one of the three any given night can have it. Because I think, I don't think we have a guy here, right? We obviously don't have our guy. It's just, let's say it as it is, right?
It
just doesn't mean it can't.
We have our Porzingis, our consistent every day.
Right.
It could be a plug and play. Just whoever heats up,
We're doing bullpen games for 82 games.
We're doing bullpen games.
No, I know you do have to find a system that
and maybe Nimi pans out and we're wrong in game 42, right? It's so early, second game, but I think that's kind of where we're at with the big man core, where it's like, okay, listen, you got a group of 3-4, and you're looking to get something out of someone any night, and you don't have your guy, right? Quite frankly, I don't want to get off topic, but I do believe there's a move that's going to be made later down the line that goes and gets that big man piece, right? That's what I personally think Brad's vision is. I think for the time being, it's okay. Maybe we can find our guy within this core, and if we don't, just someone give us something every night. Okay, rebound the ball tonight, right? Nimi, get us rebounds tonight, or Garza, get us those 8 points on the dunker side spot. That's where I think it is. I don't think we have our guy. But I do think we got a bullpen at least, right? We have guys to put out there, and maybe they can give you something
with ERAs of 9, dude.
With 9.
So here's my thing.
We might have a bunch of Walker Buehlers.
So it's not okay. Luka looked very solid tonight. I do think his timing was much better tonight than in game one. And he looked pretty good in game one. I definitely think he was in the right spots, and he looked pretty solid. Also, he gets to the free throw line a tremendous amount, getting offensive rebounds and getting to the free throw line. If he's able to, hit it at I'd say over 70% clip. I believe for a career he shoots sub 70. But and then I look at Tillman tonight, and he kind of looked the total opposite of what he looked the other night, and then Nimi didn't look great. And, you say with Nimi, well, he played Euroball. This is his first game back. He didn't play on Wednesday. I kind of walked away saying, well, we're halfway through preseason, and I have no clue who our center is. And, you could throw in Chris Boucher, but like Chris Boucher's playing around the perimeter. Chris Boucher's not down in the post. I'm talking Nemi. I'm talking Luka in the dunker spot. I'm talking Nemi in the post. I'm talking Xavier Tillman, which I get he's undersized, but we still continue to put him at the perimeter. When are we going to stop putting Xavier Tillman at the perimeter? I'm hearing all about his improved 3-point jump shot. What improved 3-point jump shot? What in these last 2 games is an improvement from last season? And I get it. It's a small sample size. I think he's only attempted like 4 or 5 threes. But if that's all we're going to do for him, he's just another wing. He's just another wing player. He's not a big. Don't slot him at the 4 or the 5. And that I don't get that. I don't get that type of and it's been ever since he came here. And I'm a broken record. Right? Like I've said this so many times since we've gotten Xavier Tillman. He's not a 3-point shooter. 26% is not a 3-point shooter. You do not put a 25% three-point shooter primarily at the 3-point line and expect him to just I don't know what you expect him to do, quite honestly. You're just putting him in there for funsies because he's not doing anything. He's not giving you anything. Halfway through the preseason, I need to see something here. You're right, because I get it. We have our plug and play players. We're not going to have our Kristaps Porzingis. We don't have Al Horford anymore. We don't have Porzingis anymore. Robert Williams even. We got to figure it out halfway through the preseason.
Xavier Tillman is 3 of 7 from the field and 1 of 5 from 3 in the preseason. So
but it's
5 of his 7 attempts have been from 3, and he's 1 of 5. However, he's 2 of 2 inside the arc, right?
And it's like the thing, and I'm not going to get into it with the whole Bash and Joe thing because, quite frankly, I don't think it's deserved right now, and it's way too early in the season for that.
Well, I'm not bashing Joe. I'm not
either. No, I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are. But like I'm saying, from what I got to be careful with how I say what I'm going to say.
He's missed all of this preseason.
I agree. But when you said it's like, why is he on the perimeter? It's like that's a fair question. Like, listen, like. You go back to his Memphis days. He had some great games in Memphis. I remember looking back on that Lakers first round matchup in 2022. And when we traded for Tillman, I saw that and I was like, oh, this is the guy we're getting. He went toe for toe with AD in the playoffs and he mucked up the game. And it's like, why aren't we using him like that? Like, he looks better from an athletic standpoint. We said that in the first game, and that stands true through 2. But why are we trying to turn him into a stretch 4 hybrid? It's like that's not who he is. Use him as a roller to the rim. Use her in that backside dunker spot. Use him on off-ball screens and slips. Like there are so many creative ways you can use a guy like Tillman, and we're just not. And it's like I think that's the frustrating thing about it because I do think Tillman could provide very, very valuable depth off the bench. But I also think that it's not going to happen and it won't work out because we don't use him like that. And that's the frustrating part because I've seen us do it. We took Luke and molded him into the player that he needed to be successful. And to me, it's like you're taking Luke. It's like if you were to take a fish, and I think I said this last year, honestly, and I can remember it was either last year or 2 years ago. It's like if you tell a fish to climb a tree, the fish is going to sit there and think it's stupid and an idiot. It's like, no, you're not an idiot. You're just a fish. You can't climb the tree. And it's like that's what I feel like the Celtics are making Tillman do. And it's like, stop having him climb the tree. He's a fish. He's got gills. He's gonna swim, right? He's a swimmer. Let him swim.
You gotta play into your guys' strengths. Like you gotta come into the season and mold your game plan around the team that you have and not around the team that you think you want or the scheme you think you have, you know.
And I think Joe does a great job with that, but it's just for some reason with Tillman, it doesn't show up. And you like scratch your head and you're like, what is it it makes me question if I'm missing something. It's like, am I missing something on Tillman that Joe sees, which again, Joe gets paid the big bucks. He's an NBA coach. It could be so easily be I'm missing something, right? But like that's for me, it's like, okay, Joe, you do such a great job at putting these players in key positions. Why aren't we doing it with Tillman? And I think for me, that's where I'm at. It's like, okay, maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. That's what it is. But I do want to touch on Simons, guys, because this was our first look at Anthony Simons in a Celtics uniform. And what do we think? It started off a little shaky. The group chat was killing me at the start, but it picked up, and I was personally impressed. But what do we like? What do we think? Is this a guy that can help the Celtics in a playoff push, or what do we think?
I think that he looked like he had a Celtic debut in his first half. Like he looked like I said it like, when like you get into the league, like a rookie gets in the league and it's just like missing shots and turning the ball over and fouling. He had 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes of his playing time tonight. Like the game just looked like it was going a million miles an hour for Anthony Simons in the first half tonight, which rightfully so. He missed Wednesday, which would have been his first Celtic debut. So kind of would have been able to, would have been nice for him to get both of these games under his belt. But, coming into tonight with this debut, I think he settled in very, very well. His decision-making was much better in the second half, as well as his shot selection. I did see Joe Mazzulla kind of pull him aside in that first half during a pair of free throws, and he had his hand over his mouth. So obviously I couldn't read his lips, but he was very emphatically talking to Anthony Simons. You could tell with his body movement and his language that he clearly did not like the play from Anthony Simons, and that he was encouraging a different sort of play, more of his own game offensively. Just play your own game. I think it was all in his head in the first half tonight. But once you kind of saw him really settle in, he did really well in the second half. In that first half of the third quarter, when the Celtics actually had their main rotation guys in, he scored 10 of his 18 in that third quarter, including a filthy and one floater, which really capped his night off after that. But started shaky, really shaky, but I really like the way he settled in. And, this is a guy where you're taking a gamble with this year, and, he's on a contract year. So if it works out for him and he gets paid and he sticks around, it does. If it doesn't, then he gets his opportunity. And I'm sure the Celtics are going to find a deal for him so they don't just lose him for nothing. So, it's a win-win for Simons and the Celtics. And I think Simons is going to fit pretty well with this offense. It was also interesting. It's preseason. Joe said, don't read into these starting lineups. I'm certainly not reading into any lineup after I saw him pair Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons in the starting lineup together tonight. But like I said, settled in really, really well in that second half.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Simons at first was definitely a little shaky, like putting the ball on the floor a little too much dribbling, trying to do too much within himself and not just kind of playing within the Celtics offense. And then he did start to find rhythm, start coming off screen, start getting catches and getting downhill and letting the game come to him. So I like to see that. I don't know. And this is just a thought that came to mind, and, maybe it doesn't hold a lot of weight, but Simons does seem like a guy that does need the ball in his hands a lot to create his shots. Like he was taking the air out a little much and maybe not moving the rock as much. So I want to make sure that I think he was working at times too hard for his shots. And so how can he find ways to just move off the ball, get cuts? Because it's going to happen. Like we're going to have Brown, we're going to have Pritchard, D White not as much having the ball in his hands. We're going to definitely have to find a way to give Simons action touches off the ball and not have the ball in his hands as much like he did in Portland. So that's going to be something that he's going to need to adapt with in my eyes. But I do think he found a way to kind of turn it around in the second half and get back to the game that he used to play in Portland and that he's known for.
I got to say, I mean, Justin has like the greatest poker face one has ever had in the history of poker faces. You would not know. So? You would not know what this man is spreading out in terms of comedic stylings. But
what does that mean?
Well, do we want to talk about Baylor Shireman right now, Justin? Do we want to talk about Baylor Shireman right now?
Yeah, we can.
This man behind the scenes, everybody, is trying to get us to cancel our Baylor Shireman segment. Live on air.
No, I'm not.
Caught you red-handed right here.
I'd love to talk. I'll talk about Baylor Shireman. Let me go on about a 10-minute tangent on Baylor Shireman.
I'll talk about I'm going to knee-jerk it to Baylor Shireman right now because I got to say, Baylor Shireman tonight. Baylor Shireman. I think, Justin, this is the reason we should have this segment. We have to recalibrate the perception on Baylor Shireman, and I hate to be a negative Nancy while doing this, but both the Raptors broadcast and the Celtics broadcast, listen to both of them tonight, both praised Baylor Shireman amidst what was a highly, highly questionable performance. Highly questionable. All right. And the first game he came out and shot like he did at the Summer League, super inefficiently. Then in this game, he comes out and does the same. And while he's doing so, he's looking a little slow out there. At times, his hands are on his knees. He's not always in the right positions. Guys are beating him off the dribble. Yet he's playing hard. He's playing hard. He's playing gritty. He's playing tough. That is what the announcers, whether it's Drew Carter and Scal or the Raptors broadcast, that's who they're pointing out, right? That's what they're pointing out, rather, within Baylor Shireman's game. But at what point is Baylor Shireman like a hockey player who's an enforcer, who's not scoring any goals, who's not coming up with any points or assists out there? That's how I view Baylor Shireman right now. Getting a lot of praise for being like Marcus Smart, right? Where he's diving all over the floor, mucking things up, but he's not actually producing anywhere on the floor. And that's why I wanted to do this segment, is because, Justin, I don't know your opinion on Baylor Shireman totally, but if I could guess by our text chain and by our thumbnails in the past, I think you have something to say about Baylor Shireman as he drinks his hot tea.
So, first of all, I just think that with Baylor,
What was that?
I don't know if
somebody's pager going off.
I don't know. I don't know if the game has slowed down for him quite particularly yet. So here's my thing with Baylor. Because I hate talking about players like this, because it's like, obviously I'll never be in their shoes and I'll never be able to, do what they do. So like, it's hard for me to like criticize them. But like, Summer League last year looked not great. Preseason last year looked not great. Okay. Rookie, minimal opportunity, had a great 1 week stretch against teams that probably not the most higher echelon of, teams. I believe we played Brooklyn a couple times and he played really well. But flash ahead to Vegas a few months ago, did not look great, fellas. He didn't look too great. These first two games did not look too great. And maybe Baylor and Joe do have a really, really good relationship. And I do believe they do. So I couldn't, make a comment on that, their personal connection. But Drew and Scal, man, they just kept going at it when I was just like, that is not what's happening. They're making it like these two are this 1-2 comedic punch. Like, oh, I do something, Joe yells at him and he laughs. It's like, no, like, you are not playing well right now. Joe was pissed. And you know what? I saw this a few years ago with Grant Williams and Joe Mazzulla, and it was a game in Cleveland. And I believe it was the same game. Grant missed the free throws. If Mazzulla was the coach then, I'm trying to remember just a specific game, but there was a moment where him and Grant went at it going into a timeout. And I feel like that's the relationship they have. Like, they go at each other. And I didn't like the whole smiles from Baylor tonight. Like, you didn't look great, and you definitely didn't look good with the four stringers late in that fourth quarter. And that to me is not the best look. Again, I hate criticizing and all that. And, it is what it is. We're, part of the media. So I guess whatever, we do that. But that's just kind of how I view it. And like, when I saw him struggle the way he did with that fourth unit tonight in that fourth quarter, I think that's why I was a little bit more sour, in terms of like, I can't watch this. Because a guy like Baylor Shireman, I understand this is only his sophomore year. A guy like Baylor Shireman should not be playing and struggling with or even against the caliber of group that they were going up against. And he was really having a hard time tonight. His shot looked horrendous. A couple turnovers, fouls, just defensively, just not looking right. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if he's just having a, not great start to the year, which that could just very much be the case simply. Dare I say, is he out of shape? I see him huffing and puffing a lot. So there's many things that could go into this. And, I'm rooting for Baylor, obviously. And obviously he is going to get a lot of chances this season, particularly. But at the same time, is he going to be consistently in this lineup for the Celtics? That's kind of what I'm saying. A few months ago, I was on that boat. I'm not there right now through these first 2 preseason games.
The way you said the game hasn't slowed down for him, that sums it up. The game hasn't slowed down for him. And this is a player. He's not 19. He's not 20. He's not a 20-year-old sophomore. This guy played, he was drafted. He played 4 years in college. He has seen a lot of basketball. And quite frankly, he's seen a good amount of NBA professional basketball. And I think my biggest thing with Shireman was, you're right, guys, we covered the Vegas Summer League. He did not look pretty there either. And it's not that it's just not pretty with Shireman, but it gets really ugly with Shireman. And I think it's too big of a risk when you're a player of the caliber and what the job we're asking for Shireman, if it's going to get that ugly, right? You can't risk that. It's just, if it's going to get that ugly, you got to go a different direction. And it's early. It's the second game of the preseason. There is still time for it to get more, prettier, I guess. But I'm going to join in with you guys. The Shireman experience has gone pretty poorly. And I think that is kind of where I'm at with Shireman, because it wasn't just bad today. It was like really, 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 really ugly. And this is not the first time where Shireman has gotten to that really, 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 really ugly situation, And I just think that's kind of like the harsh reality.
It's one of those things that in the NBA, players, right, sometimes they ride on reputation rather than actual performance on court. Baylor Shireman played at Creighton, obviously was in March Madness, gained a reputation there, picked in the first round by the Celtics. And the Celtics, as we know, there's a lack of developmental projects on the Celtics roster. At least there was last season. Right now, there's a couple more guys at the back end, but in terms of their development, we're just hoping some of these guys, and the Celtics are hoping some of these guys become rotation players. There are not any guys we're looking at going, oh, yes, this is going to be a starting caliber player for years to come who we're developing, who we picked in the first round, right? Because some other teams have that, or lottery picks, whoever, right? Some teams are trying to develop players into high-level starters, potentially all-stars, all-NBA players in their lineups, and those are all the players they drafted, right? Those young players. The Celtics don't really have a lot of those players, right? And even the players they do have now, they're developing. They're not exactly. Some of them, say Luka Garza and Josh Minot, they're developmental projects. Yet they've been in the league for 3-4 seasons with other teams as well. And the Celtics, that's why Jordan Walsh, that's why Baylor Shireman, both of those guys are held in such high regard, because the Celtics went out and tried to find that value within the draft in the second round and the first round with Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh. And part of it is, can we bring them up? Can we bring them up into being $10 million a year players? Right. And that is the thought. That is the thought with young guys, and especially with the Celtics not owning a ton of those young guys over the years. Baylor Shireman, the minute he comes into the building, he's not just somebody the Celtics are looking at and going, well, can't play any minutes, slot him away. That was the case at the beginning of last season because the championship squad was still around. Yet now, ever more so, especially at the end of last season, going into this season, the Summer League, going into this preseason, Baylor Shireman is pinpointed as a player the Celtics need to develop in order to win ball games the way they did the last 3 years, the last 4 years, as we know, right? Because it wasn't just the guys at the top end of the roster. It was those guys off the bench as well. Some of the Celtics depth. I mean, look at Peyton Pritchard, right? He was a late round pick, and he became sixth man of the year last year. And Hugo Gonzalez, you hope he becomes that for the Celtics in the future. Same with Baylor Sharman, maybe even Jordan Walsh. Those are the three guys, right? The Celtics, those are the young guys the Celtics actually picked themselves. There's a different sense between teams and guys they actually picked, right? You sign guys from elsewhere, they've been in other buildings. Yes, you want to develop those guys, but the players in which the Celtics actually drafted, they want to see the value extracted out of those players. And Baylor Shireman at this point, we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. The fan base gives him the benefit of the doubt. The announcing team gives him the benefit of the doubt because of who he is, right? The Celtics 30th overall pick. He's in his second year, still developing. We all know it doesn't happen overnight for these guys, right? Some guys hit in years 3, 4, maybe even 5 on some occasions, right? Usually that's pretty rare. But Baylor Shireman, as we've mentioned a lot over this summer, he's an older player, right? So that development should come a little bit quicker. But up to this point, we've seen, I mean, Justin, you pointed it out before the broadcast. I think our conversation before the broadcast, we should have hit record a lot sooner.
No,
because we say a lot of
lot
good
of
things
bleeps
off
in
of
there.
broadcast. Like immediately, we'll get off here and say good things too. But what you said about Shireman before the broadcast was completely correct. Baylor Shireman in his Celtics career, not so great of a summer league in 2024, wasn't this crazy standout player. And then in 24-25, hardly plays at all. Plays a nice 2-week stretch near the end of the season when the Celtics are sitting their guys here and there. And I want to point out, too, during that stretch, a lot of teams the Celtics were facing at that point in time. The Celtics owned the hardest schedule up until January last year, right? That was kind of the correlation with the Celtics' performance up to that point. The Celtics were playing 500 basketball, but yet they had the hardest schedule. That second half of the schedule for the Celtics after January was the easiest schedule in the NBA, including that stretch near the end of the season where the Celtics are playing tanking team after tanking team after tanking team. We look back at Shireman's best performances. They literally came against the Brooklyn Nets last year. So he had a nice 2-week performance in there. Oh, you played the Brooklyn Nets well, the worst team in the NBA, essentially, the team that started out playing well, but yet they're trying to lose every game possible right now because they started out so well last season and now they're trying to tank, right? Baylor Shireman performs well in that week. And then the summer does not stand out at Summer League whatsoever. And from that point, we're now here. We're here in the preseason, 2 games in, and Baylor Shireman, the shooting numbers specifically, I'm looking at the shooting numbers from Shireman because that's going to be a huge part of his game. Can you hit those outside shots? Think about how many times Baylor Shireman is in that corner, boom, getting the kick out, or just anywhere on the perimeter, open for 3, right? That's going to be a huge part of his game. And those shooting numbers have not looked great at all at any point in his career. And they're continuing up to this point. And again, the announcing team, the fan base, they keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. Yet the checkpoints, I talked about this over the summer as well. The checkpoints with Baylor Shireman, they've if at each checkpoint you were going to give him red or green, right? Just simplify it. Red or green, right? Did he succeed at this checkpoint or did he fail? Okay, red or green. How many greens are there on Shireman's checkpoint list? Are there any? You could say maybe that 2-week stretch, but that's it.
Yeah, maybe.
That is it. In a year and a half, that's it. And that's where now this may be a total overreaction to the second preseason game of the year. We could see that progression within Shireman as he gets maybe some consistent playing time within this rotation. But I'll even say that. Has he earned that consistent playing time? It feels like we're just lusting him into we're just putting him in a position, right? We're just putting him into a position that I had to make I would like an onomatopoeia to it, right? I'm like, where's the vocabulary? Like, here's okay,
where's Franco's soundboard when you need it?
Exactly. See, that's what we're missing here. But we just thrusted Baylor Shireman into a position, and it just feels like is he even ready for this, right? Is he even for this? And I will say this too. Technically, the Celtics haven't given him anything yet, right? Like, all he's played is Summer League, that 2 weeks last year. There's been no point in time where Baylor Shireman is really a part of the rotation at any point, really. And that's kind of where I go and I look at the I look at the garbage time lineup in the end of the game, and Shireman was partially included in that lineup. That's a telltale sign that Missoula, is he going to trust Shireman? I mean, I look at a guy like Hugo Gonzalez. I go, does he potentially garner a little bit more trust out of Missoula for what he's able to do on the defensive end of the floor? And
Yes.
sometimes offensively, there's more aggression in him and just less mistakes out of Hugo Gonzalez. But that's what I'm saying is, if you have a player who is better defensively and they're shooting in terms of volume, Baylor Shireman is shooting a higher volume, yet he's shooting, I mean, they're shooting the same percentage, right? And offensively, they're both not huge perimeter factors, yet Gonzalez, there's more activity to him on both ends of the floor. And he's just, I would agree with the whole, is Baylor Shireman in shape? I don't think he totally is in shape. There's moments where he's sitting there on defense with his hands on his knees. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. I will just call him out for that.
Unacceptable. And I think
that's where we're at with Shireman and Gonzalez in the lineup. The anointment of Shireman, the anointment of Shireman is too soon.
I feel like Seamus, you use this term a lot, like the margin of error. It's like having Hugo Gonzalez in, to me, feels like there's more safety. There's more of a safety net because on the defensive end he's going to be able to, produce on that there. So like, but with Shireman, it's like if he's not producing on offense, to me right now he's got a slow step on the defensive end. He does look out of shape. Like he just doesn't look athletically fit to be in the NBA, and that's in my eyes.
Yes. Well, that's the exact same thing I think. When I look out there, I go, does he even belong on an NBA court?
Yeah.
The perception of him from seriously the broadcast to what we're seeing, I'm going, this just doesn't match. I get it. He's throwing elbows. He's aggressive here and there. But that point right there is simple because we talked about it in regard to Xavier Tillman last game. If you're not in shape, if you're injured, you can't do anything. You can't go out there and admit your skill. So that's a huge part of the conversation.
Especially
is he even fit enough to be in the league?
Especially in the NBA right now, where it's like we are moving towards
ultra athletes.
There's ultra athletes. There's plenty of athletes out there. Like you're gonna want to have an athlete out there. And Shireman, to me, it's just he doesn't have enough athleticism to make up for his poor offense at times.
Well, I don't want to brush past the biggest problem of the whole conversation is what Andrew just said. The fact that we have more, like the fact that we have more faith in a 19-year-old rookie from Spain.
Right. I mean that too.
From Barcelona. Like straight up. And I love Hugo. I think he is going to be Avery Bradley comparison. I'm rolling with that, Justin. I think that was like my favorite part of last night's show. My favorite take was that comparison. And that's, no diss. I'm not dissing, Hugo right now, but like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, Shireman, you're 25. You played 4 years of collegiate basketball in the NCAA, which right now, like the collegiate ball, pretty high level basketball right now, fellas. Like the competition you're getting there, the competition you're getting overseas is, it's not the same. That's, overseas is professional, but it's pretty good. And we're saying we have more faith in the 19-year-old, Spaniard. That's just like, come on. Like, if that's even a conversation, okay, I'm going to roll with the 19-year-old that's 6 years younger and has way more upside potential. It's way more physically fit. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. Like, let's say it for what it is. And, I think that's part of the problem. But I do want to jump in to the Celtics rotation and more specifically the Celtics top half of the rotation, because I do think it's easy in the preseason to kind of focus on the bottom of the end of the bench guys. And, I think the harsh reality is we might not even see a lot of these guys get a lot of run come, the regular season. So guys, obviously, you talk about the core four right now and how times have changed. Well, the core four we're looking at right now, Brown, not Tatum. That's weird. Brown, White, Simons, and Pritchard. Those four guys, we haven't seen them on the floor together yet. Right. But we have seen the two pairings. Where are we at? What do we think? And can these guys compete with the best of them in the Eastern Conference?
So I'm going to go first because probably going to go to the 3-man here. Laptops fried. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very much so obviously start White, start Brown. Again, I can't like we're halfway through the preseason and I still need time to figure this out. I do believe that this might be a little bit unpopular opinion here, but hear me out. I wouldn't mind seeing Pritchard come off the bench again. And I don't know if that's the right move, but I am all for this year being such a unfamiliar year. But if you can spread out your if you could spread out what you are familiar with, that could also help. So I'm very comfortable with, Brown and White obviously staying in that starting lineup. But then after Brown and White, out of that core, you don't really have anybody after that if you start Pritchard. So I'd love Pritchard to come off the bench. I'd have comfortability in our bench if I see, okay, Peyton Pritchard's on our bench. He's coming off the bench. He's producing. I don't think it's going to matter production-wise. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Peyton Pritchard just wants to go out and ball. He doesn't care if he starts or he doesn't care if he comes off the bench. He just wants to go out there. He said it the second his feet hit the court, he's going. He wants to compete. But I do think the obvious in terms of an everyday rotation, I think Minot has to be in there. Like Scal said it multiple times throughout the broadcast. That Josh Minot is a serious NBA player, and you can kind of really slot him in with any team, and he's going to give you this type of production. And Seamus, I agree with you. I think he fell into the Celtics' arms this offseason, and he was a tremendous underrated pickup that nobody was really talking about, even when he did come to Boston for the first time. So, and then in terms of the center position, guys, I have no clue. What I do know is Luka Garza for sure should be getting minutes this year. Whether that's off the bench or starting lineup, we'll figure out these next two games. Xavier Tillman, it's going to depend on his knee. It sounds like he missed a lot of time last year from that knee. But, again, I stay with what I said earlier in the episode. I still don't know a defiant, rotation I'd go with right now. Right. Because, I'm just not there. Me personally, I'm just not there yet. Right. I am about to get booted out of here, but I will say you, Seamus, and Andrew, you guys can all kind of give your own rotations, and that's cool. But just for me, I'm not comfortable sitting here and giving you a defiant answer yet. That's just kind of where I'm at halfway through the preseason.
I think for me, the biggest thing, all right, so how do it's the way I look at it, it's like a table. But okay, so let's see if I can take that table in my brain and put it into words here. So the way I look at it, right, I agree, right? Brown and White, obviously, that's not even a question. They're starters, right? But I think the real interesting dynamic here, guys, in this, we talk about top four, right? In their ability to compete in the East. Andrew, you talked a little bit about it, right? Where, maybe you throw Boucher in there, but again, I want to really focus. Oh, my head just got way bigger.
I know, when you go to the 3-man, it's okay, everybody scoot back and readjust your cameras and all right.
But so I think the real interesting thing is Pritchard. Yeah, no, I'm whoa.
So far away.
The real interesting thing, and this is what I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Pritchard and Simons. Now, I'm a big Pritchard guy. Wasn't originally back in the big 2023 in that season, but he grew on me, and the man can produce, plain and simple, right? But here's my thing: we're putting a lot on the hands of Peyton Pritchard this season, a lot, and I think the dynamic in terms of starters, I don't really think it matters much, but I do think there's two important factors here. As I'm just sorry, fellas, I'm just going to fix my camera a little bit. I think a big deciding factor is who plays best off of Brown and White and who can run the show better. I think the guy that can run the show better, in a sense, should be coming off the bench. And I think that guy might be Pritchard, because I think Pritchard is more comfortable in the offense. And I think he can do a better job at not just creating for himself, but creating for others when White or Brown aren't on the floor. Guys, we talk about this all the time when Tatum's off the floor. this season, it's going to be what can the Celtics do when Brown's off the floor, right? Because that's going to be, he's probably going to be hovering around 26, 28 points per game, right around 4 or 5 assists, very high usage. Like Jaylen Brown's the guy right now, right? So which of those two can play off of him? And which of those two is better at running the show? And I think for me, when I look at that top 4, I agree with Justin. It's a little early. We haven't seen them all in action together. But I think the talent's there for them to compete up with those top guys, especially in the East. The East is still really, really weak. Orlando, New York. It's like it's Indiana's without their best player. It's just a mess right now. We're not in the West, thank God. But I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like, okay, like which one, 2 parts. One, wow, this Boston Celtics, this organization's got a lot of faith in Pritchard. I think he's going to deliver, but a lot rides on Peyton Pritchard this season. And the second one is who, between the 2 guards, Pritchard and Simons, who plays better off Brown and White, and who plays better running the show? Because that's how I think you kind of decipher that rotation. I
really look at these 2 games, the Grizzlies game and the Raptors game, the first 2 games of the Celtics preseason, and I believe in the control of the top 4, right? But I don't know how it meshes together, right? Because when I look at Derek White and Jaylen Brown together last game, clearly those 2 have command within the offense. They own command within the offense that is shown from their championship experiences and just their tenured experiences in the NBA. I mean, they're both 10-year veterans. And, well, Derek White's in year 9, Jaylen Brown's in year 10. So both of those guys show, I mean, and it's not even just that one preseason game. We've seen it for seasons now. Derek White and Jaylen Brown clearly, as NBA champions, own that command and control within an offense. And tonight, it looked as if Simons, especially in that third quarter, and Pritchard own that same control, right? And that same command, maybe to a lesser degree, because it was a different style of play, right? Brown and White at the end of the day are a little bit more, I don't want to say they're methodical, but they're better playmakers, right? They're not so oriented on scoring. They're both looking to score, but they are also looking to make plays. And I'd actually say Derek White, he's looking to make plays more than he's looking to score. But rather Pritchard and Simons, they're looking to score the ball. They're looking for angles in which they can get to the rim or even pull up for 3 and get themselves a shot on the perimeter. But I look at all 4 guys and I go, these 4 guys own command. Right, all 4 of them in some way, shape, or form. All of them can handle the ball and command it offense. But how do they mesh together? Because I almost see them as 4 guards, right? Because I think the new age NBA is you're either handling the ball or you're not. Right? You're either a big guy, you're a wing, or you're a guard. And then we know guards, and they can be up to. We see Kevin Durant, he's 7 foot tall. I mean, he basically plays like a guard. So that's where we're at in the NBA, this era of you're either handling the ball, you're either playing off the ball on the perimeter as a wing player, like a Boucher, right? Bigger wings or even smaller wings. And then we have big guys. Well, I see the Celtics because, we could say, oh, Brown's a forward and White's a... No, I mean, it's not quite positionless, but Brown can handle the ball, Pritchard can handle the ball, Simons can handle the ball, White can handle the ball. And I almost look at it and go, if you throw those 4 guys in a lineup together, that could be a pretty good, but that could produce a pretty good offensive team together, or it could produce a team that doesn't make sense with each other whatsoever. And then there's a lot of pushing and pulling between the opportunities. Now, I wouldn't expect that for Derek White, but I would say for Simons and Pritchard, those 2 guys specifically, can they be maximized with Brown and White? Because Pritchard and Simons, specifically, we looked at Simons earlier in this game, went, it looks a little timid within the offense, right? If Brown and White are there and they're taking over the bulk of responsibility, how does Pritchard and Simons slot in and really get theirs? And how do they understand how to play within the offense? Because that's really hard when you have 4 guys together who know how to handle the ball. And I would mainly, I wouldn't say worry, but I would say specifically targeting 3 guys, Brown, Pritchard, Simons. I think White, he's unselfish enough and he plays off the ball enough. And let's face it, the last 2 seasons, especially with that roster, right, he's played off ball enough to fall into a secondary role if he needs to and be that unselfish player. But Brown knows he's the number one guy. Simons is trying to get another contract. Pritchard is trying to get another contract and even a better role than just sixth man of the year. I mean, he wants to make all-star teams. Let's face it. Pritchard doesn't want to. He has way loftier expectations than just sixth man of the year. I'm coming off the bench. Like, no, Pritchard is. He wants a much more elevated role than what he's in right now. But the top of the roster, that is what is, I mean, the whole roster, the rotation, this is what is so intriguing about this year's Celtics squad is last year, the last 2 years especially, we knew the rotation, right? We knew the starters, we knew who would slot in, and really the conversation was about, who's going to be the 9th, 10th, 11th man, right? That was the conversation. It was, can anybody replace Hauser? Now it's, well, who's going to even be in the rotation? Who do we trust at the back end of the roster? Also, who's going to make the roster at the end of the day? If you look at the back end, there is some competition there if their guy's going to be cut or not. Who's going to make the roster? Who's going to make the rotation? And then furthermore, what does the starting lineup look like? We don't know what the starting lineup looks like. And then moreover from that, within that starting lineup, who gets what role, right? Who gets what role? Because I even look at a guy like Simons right now. And yes, there were moments, and I'll touch on Simons real quick here. Anthony Simons, I thought, played a tremendous game tonight, okay? I know his shooting numbers were off early, and he looked very timid in the offense and kind of like he was just stepping back, letting things happen. But I thought throughout the game, he worked his way into the game. The entirety of the offense and the team worked their way into the game. That's what caused that 27-point lead. But Simons, in that third quarter, 4 of 6 from the floor, and that command and that control came out, especially within his scoring. And I thought early on, I thought he took a good approach to the game. I didn't want to see him come out and be that selfish player. I really didn't. I didn't want to see him and Pritchard fight over the ball. I mean, he came out and was pretty much like, all right, Pritchard, you have control of the offense. I'm going to be more in an off-ball role, but I'm going to be that secondary guard that, when Pritchard, if he gets rid of the ball, there were a lot of actions at the beginning of this game where I go, it's not just Simons, right? It's guys like Haytayan, right? Guys like Garza, where the screen, when they're coming up to set the screen, it's not the right angle or it's not the right time, right? Then all of a sudden, there was one play, I believe somebody had it out on Twitter, and there was one play where the Celtics set a double screen at the top of the key, and Simons was supposed to run through 2 screens, and his defender didn't hit either screen. Like, it just right past, because the screens were not set. The communication screens were not set correctly, and Simons didn't. It was the positioning on the floor. Simons didn't run off him correctly. The screen it was all messed up, both parties. But I look at that and go, well, is that all Simons? No. And in that moment, he doesn't get the ball, and it's like, well, he's trying to be aggressive and maybe get the ball in that moment, but the entirety of the offense off ball is not completely working. But I thought otherwise, didn't start out the best shooting wise at all for Simons, but I did like his approach. I like the approach of, okay, Pritchard, there's kind of a hierarchical structure here already, but then he made his way, he worked his way into the game throughout. And I think Anthony Simons showed us tonight, he's going to be a player. He's going to be a player that's hard to deny a starting spot on this team, I believe. And that's where Pritchard is not going to want to hear this, but Pritchard could come off the bench again. I think Pritchard and a lot of people thought this summer, who knows what Pritchard thought, but a lot of the fan base thought this summer that Pritchard, he's going to be elevated into a starting role. But I look at it and go, look, Brown, he handles the ball primarily. Derek White, he's going to handle the ball secondarily. Okay, well, those are your technical 2 ball handlers in the starting lineup. So if you insert a third guy in there, Simons and Pritchard, I do like the argument of, you bring something. I mean, either one of those guys brings something to the table off the bench. But I do look at Simons and his fluidity out on the floor. He's a player that I don't know how we keep him on the bench. And I almost go, do the Celtics start 4 guards, right? Do they start Brown, White, Simons, Pritchard, and like what? They just go small ball with Boucher? They throw in Hauser, go really small ball? They throw in Haytayan? That's where this team is just going to be so interesting. And this is where the two places there are 2 levels of the Celtics I view right now, right? Where it's like one's more disastrous, pessimistic view, one's more optimistic, right? The Celtics, there's more talent on this roster than people want to give credit for, and there's more there's just more depth than people want to give the credit for too. I mean, we're talking like, hey, we kind of have 9 guys that we believe in at the very least. Now it'd be great if you had Tatum at the top, and that would make 10. But on one side of this, it's like, okay, Celtics, they look a little better, especially offensively, with specifically those core 4 we haven't even seen together yet. But on the other side, I kind of look at this and go, the lineups, right? Because we don't know the lineups. Back in 2021, right, Brad Stevens was throwing out a different starting lineup almost every day due to COVID, injuries, everything, right? And the inconsistency absolutely killed that team. The inconsistency alone, right? And even though there's some talent on this Celtics squad, I'm not sure it makes sense together in a rotation. And I believe there could be a lot of inconsistencies on what we see on a nightly basis. There could be nights where Pritchard starts and then he's on the bench, or Simons. I mean, you would like to think Mazzulla sets a standard for his lineup, but I just look at this roster and the talent, and even the talent that's right here, right neck and neck. It's not like, say Gonzalez and Shireman. I'm not looking at those two going, wow, Gonzalez clearly better than Shireman, or Shireman clearly better than Gonzalez. We're kind of going, I would maybe believe in Gonzalez a little bit more. Same with Pritchard and Simons, neck and neck. Again, in that spot, the big man core, it's a lot of neck and neck. This could cause a lot of inconsistency. It could cause a lot of question marks throughout the season. Regardless, from what we saw from the 27-point lead tonight, there is some talent on the Celtics roster. And specifically speaking about Anthony Simons, he's a player I think a lot of people find out about this season, especially in the Celtics fan base, but just the East Coast as well. He's out there in Portland for the last 7 seasons, and we talked about it last post game. Apparently, I mean, they didn't have any resources to even broadcast Anthony Simons out into the world out in Portland. That's what the word on the street is, apparently, from Anthony Simons' experience in Portland. Like everybody who travels and joins the Boston Celtics, it's like their last destination was like, oh, you were, I don't know what to compare this to. Maybe in Boston, like the New York Yankees. Like, I don't know. Like, is that the correct thing to compare it to? Like, you were the worst organization in the world. I don't want to pick on any organizations or countries here.
Maybe I'll pick on them. Like White Sox, Rockies. Like, can we go that level?
I guess. But like,
I'll gladly pick on some bummy organization.
They just came out of the gulag or something, right? Like, it's like, you just came from Siberia, man. You just, wow. Minot's here. Minot. Oh, we saved him from Minnesota. It's like, might as well have been out in Siberia. It's like, oh, Minot. Oh, my goodness. We didn't even have heat up in Minnesota. Could you imagine how cold it was in January last year? How could he have performed up in Minnesota without heat?
Just wait for January. But I will say this, though. I personally do think there is a correct everyday starting 5. I personally think there's a right answer to this test. I think it's Simons, White, Brown, Boucher, Neemias. I think you have a lot of size, a lot of speed, and a lot of flexibility. And then I think the bench, you go Pritchard, Hauser, Garza, Minot. And I think you're looking at that rotation. And yes, that rotation competes with the Eastern Conference, not to come out of the East for a championship, right? I'm not saying that, but they make some noise in the East, right? They can compete with the best of them in the Eastern Conference. I do believe that's the right equation here, because again, I agree. Simons is what we saw from just a play style was to a T pretty perfect. He wasn't coming in. And Simons is a guy where in Portland, like the ball was in his hands a lot. Like it was like Anthony Simons kind of like ran that offense. Obviously it got kind of weird. They brought in Jeremy Grant and then they brought in like Scoot Henderson, and it just got weird towards the back half of his tenure there. It's just a mess there. It was just a mess. But I do think there's a right answer. I do think that is the answer. I don't go Hauser. I don't go Hauser in the starting. I'm going to say that a couple more times. I do not go Sam Hauser in the starting lineup. If I see Sam Hauser in the starting lineup, I will be pissed off. I'm serious. You do not go Sam Hauser in the starting lineup. You don't. I'm sorry. I'm going to be very and I'm Mr. You remember Seamus back in 2022 where the Celtics were in, back half and they needed some shooting. What was I saying? There's a guy up in Maine, Sam. I'm a Sam Hauser stan. But no, you do not start Sam. I'm sorry, you can't. You don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, Joe. Don't do it.
It's like me and Jameis Winston. I love Jameis Winston. His first season, in his second year, I'm like, this guy is not as good as everybody thinks. He won the Heisman. Come on, folks.
Come on, the 30-30 club.
good.
That's special right
But
there.
well, this was way before the 30-30 club. I gotta say, just saying. But I hate to say this too. I think Joe Mazzulla may. Here's what
Don't say it. Don't say it. Are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say?
I think.
Don't say
Okay,
it. Please
the
don't
two
say
guys like Boucher and Simons, right? I almost objectively look at them and go, are you guys just better than what we have, right? Or is it better than what we have or what the Celtics already have in Pritchard and Hauser at those, let's say the forward and the guard position, starting at those positions? Or are we latching onto something that's newer, right? Because it's hard to say. It's hard to say when
watch what Boucher's doing.
You could say you're latching onto something older. You know what I mean? It's like
no, but I'm saying like here's the dynamic. Here's the dynamic. When we're watching, say, Pritchard and Hauser, they've never been anywhere else. They've only we knew them as little tadpoles, right? We knew them as undrafted Sam Hauser and 26th pick Peyton Pritchard, and then they turned into guys, right? Versus Simons and Boucher, we've known about them for years. Whether they're in Simons out in Portland, Boucher in Toronto. We knew about them for years and respected them for one reason or the other. We saw Simons out in Portland. The scoring ability, Boucher, the length. That was always something in Toronto. And we valued those guys, say like when we're going through the trade deadline every year or free agency, when those guys come up, right? Inevitably, I'm sure we thought about both of those guys at some point in time. But both of those guys we're going, we're looking at it from an outsider's perspective on what kind of value they actually have, face value for the player they are. It's harder to really decipher that.
Say it. You can say it. Just say something. No, but you think Sam's going to start? Just say it. Tear the band.
Wait, I don't think anything right now. I'll say this.
Okay.
I don't think anything. First of all, here's what I'll tell you. I think all of the talk over the summer was complete BS. Okay, like, Pritchard is going to start and Kate is going to start. If we actually backtracked where those rumors came from, which I'm all about backtracking where all the information in the NBA comes from, those rumors came from articles where people were like, well, since Tatum is out, you would think Pritchard would start. And people went, Pritchard is going to start. And it's like, that is not what was said in the article. And also, this person writing the article is just like you or me writing this article. It's like they have as much information as us. They're not Joe Mazzulla. They're not Brad Stevens. They're not sitting there in the Celtics facility. So all that talk over the summer was complete nonsense. And I think it does come down to these couple weeks here in training camp, in the preseason. I don't know who's going to start yet. I don't even really have I don't have favorites in from my perspective. I want to see it play out. I really want to see it play out on court first. But that's where I do look at the Boucher Simons pairing versus the Pritchard Hauser pairing. And the point of all this is it's hard to evaluate Pritchard and Hauser because we've known them for so long. We've seen so many of their games, and it's easy to kind of float on players, right? When you see them so often, when you go, it's hard to put them in relevancy with the rest of the league when you see them so often, right? Because there's so much of a sample size, so much data, right? Versus other guys you don't have as much data on. Right now, really, in an ideal world, I think Boucher and Simons have shown a little bit more versatility and maybe should be in that starting lineup. But this is where I go with the Celtics. I don't know what kind of route they're going to take here, and I don't know what it looks like in the locker room behind the scenes because that matters too. Like, what does the hierarchical structure look like behind the scenes? Who's leading the way? Like, who's leading the force? Who's leading the conversations in the huddle, right? But I do believe there might be some favoritism towards Pritchard and Hauser and putting them in the starting lineup. I would not be shocked if on opening night the starting lineup included all Celtics players who were on last year's roster. Pritchard, White, Brown, Hauser, and Keita. I would not be shocked. I would think that's actually more likely, but here's what I think. Is that subject to change? It should be, because the last couple of years, the lineups, I think we had a huge I think we all had a huge problem with Joe Mazzulla last year in January and February when the lineups weren't changing and the Celtics were going back and forth, losing and winning, going 500. We were going, the lineups aren't changing. The lineups aren't changing. Well, part of the reason they weren't changing is because, well, there was no real excuse for Joe Mazzulla and why the lineups were changing. There should have been a little more Shireman in there. There should have been a little bit more Walsh. There should have been a little bit more when we actually got him Torrey Craig, right? At that point in the season when Celtics actually signed Torrey Craig. But last year, Joe Mazzulla, a reluctancy to play certain guys in the middle of the season. Well, that lineup ultimately was a championship squad. At the end of the year, no matter what kind of rotational adjustments Joe Mazzulla made in the middle of the season to switch up the rotation a little bit, the end of the season rotation was going to be Porzingis. It was going to be Porzingis. It was going to be White, Holiday, Brown, Tatum, Pritchard, Horford, Hauser off the bench. Those are your 8. And then, you could throw a Cornet, number 9, right? You could throw other guys in there, spot minutes, but those were the 9, right? Those were the 9 you knew the Celtics, everybody knew the Celtics were going to deal with. Now, to me, this, especially the big man spot and even the forward rotation we pointed out the other night, none of this is settled. The 2 guys I really feel like own definitive spots on this team, Derek White and Jaylen Brown. Like, congratulations, you guys are the starters. You own a ton of responsibility. Everybody else, I don't know if Pritchard is going to start, or I don't know if Pritchard or Simon is going to start. I don't know if Boucher is going to start. I don't know if Hauser is going to start. I don't know if Keita, because even Keita could start the season as a starter. This is where I think this Celtics team, if there's any alarm bells like, oh, this could happen in the future, is the potential inconsistencies awaiting this team when inevitably some of the lineups that look definitive at the beginning of the season aren't producing all that well. And then that is going to be the first time in Joe Mazzulla's career, really, where he has to go, you know what, here's my plan. I'm going to abandon my plan. Now, this is only if the Celtics are not really hitting. Like, the Celtics could have a definitive lineup at the beginning of the season and just hit the road running and start the season out. Oh, they're 20-5, and it's like, oh, wow, really that good? I mean, that's fair. That's really optimistic. But something like that, the Celtics could be successful. But if the Celtics are 500 or below, say mid-season, right, going into January, all this, Joe Mazzulla is going to have to look at the definitive standardized rotation and take the puzzle, right, and just do this and put it back together in a different way, because right now we have not, up to this point, we have not seen Joe Mazzulla have to do that yet in his coaching tenure at all. He's been, unfortunately, right? I think fortunately more so for Joe Mazzulla. He would rather have the ring than he would rather have the ring than be cast to, say, the Charlotte Hornets like Charles Lee was, right? But Joe Mazzulla, he's only had to deal with championship caliber rosters. He's always known who his rotations, what they would look like. This next season, nobody knows. Joe Mazzulla probably doesn't even know at this point. And I think is really when we're going to see the true coaching level of Joe Mazzulla come out, and it's going to be another developmental period, I'm afraid, for Joe Mazzulla, which could yield some questionable results at times. And doesn't make him a bad coach, but just the reality of the situation.
And I think that's where we're at. Obviously, we're having speculation on who should start here, who should start there. It's like, I think at this point, you have to kind of still mix and match, even within preseason. Like, even when the regular season starts, like, I don't think you can go and have a definite answer to your lineup right away. Like, you just got to give guys chances and see how it works, and give Pritchard the starting role. You just have to. There's going to be a lot of variability in the lineups to start, and then you'll see where it goes. I will say I almost think that Pritchard has, from this preseason game, there seemed to be a level of growth from his offseason in my eyes, like his ability to like kind of attack the rim and operate with closer to the basket. Like, but I do think having a guy coming off the bench with that rotation, having a leader within that rotation off the bench, in my eyes, is something that Pritchard can offer rather than a Simons.
Right.
Or,
I agree.
Rather than a Simons. And I think Pritchard thrives in those opportunities to kind of like, play play the bench players on the other team, and he's just that 6-man guy that gives you that spark off the bench, and I think it's a role that he should be actually. He is celebrated for it, but I think it's a role he should be continue to be celebrated for, and really we should utilize him in that fashion. So I agree with you, Rob. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I do think Pritchard has the ability to not worry about if he's starting. I think he doesn't have that type of ego.
I also think it's a year that has a lot of potential change. There's a lot of change, not potential change.
That's it. Yeah.
I do think it's good from the Celtics perspective to keep some of the aspects that made your team last year, the past 2 years, 3 years now, 4, we could go back 4 years. So good. And one of those key factors to, you winning a championship and you being so dominant was Peyton Pritchard coming off your bench. Right. And it's like, I think it could be as simple as that Joe looks at it, goes, listen, Pritchard's been the 6th man. He was really good at the 6th man position. Let's not take a risk in this area, and let's just keep Pritchard on the bench. But I see, Seamus, I see your vision where in my head, there's a right answer to this test, right? But I don't really know all the questions to the test, right? I don't really, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, I don't really know what's going to pop up on the test, but like my baseline, like, okay, like brief read through of the test, I guess I'll say, just looking at the study guide. I do have that set 5 that I mentioned earlier kind of in the back of my brain where it's like, okay, that's kind of the direction I want these guys to go. So we'll have to wait and see. But part of that, right, it comes potentially, maybe that question is answered Sunday against the Cleveland Cavaliers at home as the first home game, and could potentially, we don't know yet, be the first time we see, a 5, the fully, constructed roster play with each other. So what are you guys looking for in this Sunday matchup against Cleveland? Is that kind of for me, that's the biggest thing I'm looking for, is what's the lineups look like? What do the rotations look like? And most importantly, who's even playing, right? Are we going to get the back end of the bench guys again? Which you probably will.
Yeah, I'm with
hydrated Cavaliers team. I'll say that.
That's what you want to see? Yeah.
Well, Lonzo Ball said Cleveland has water, so I assume they'd be fully hydrated coming into the Garden this year. I wasn't sure if they had water last year or the year before. Maybe that's why we didn't see him in the playoffs last year after we talked about it for the whole season. I'm looking forward to that this year, how we have no idea we're going to play in the playoffs. Last year was like, all right, the Knicks and Cavs and that. Nope. But anyway, Andrew, what do you think? What do you think about Sunday?
Yeah, I think from the discussion that we just had, like, I want to see them test like real lineups and have a little more intention behind it, and not just kind of throw guys out there, let them get their runs, like let them kind of just feel it out. Like it's time to take it up a notch and find who fits in where, because it's unfortunate, but this is going to be it's going to be a long test in my eyes. And the sooner you start figuring out the answers to that test and figure out who's going to fit in where, the sooner you can start getting a definitive lineup that you can run with and build and grow. And like, yes, the 82 game season is a long season, but it can really go south in some ways where like guys start to not buy in to the roster, where they start getting selfish. They start wanting to prove to themselves that they want to get contracts. So time is in the essence in my eyes, and you have to attack it at a point with a sense of urgency. And
I like that urgency
and find a way to find the lineup, because you need guys buying in. You need guys knowing their role from the start of the season, because it can get difficult and it can just start like playing college basketball. Like guys start getting checked out and guys start not caring about the season. They start getting selfish and they start not wanting to be part of the team. So it's how do you, as soon as possible, find these roles for these guys, put them in the best spots to succeed, and then continue to water them and provide nourishment to those players.
And a huge point to that is the top 4, right? I want to see the top 4 together on Sunday at the Garden. It's basically the opening game. at the Garden. I mean, it's not anything like opening night, don't get me wrong, but it's a preseason game at the Garden. It's the first game of the year, game of the season at the Garden. Number one, this game, look, I believe in these scenarios, even though it's preseason, right? Fans are coming out to see this game. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper. Some of the fans who aren't usually there during the regular season, please, Boston Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, whoever. I mean, well, it's Joe Mazzulla, let's face it. I was going to say, whoever manages the lineups, right? Definitely the coaching staff. But Joe Mazzulla, please play the top four together. And I want to see the back end guys, don't get me wrong, but this on Sunday in front of the Garden for the first time, hopefully it is not a game where it's just the back end players, because we had that last year against Philadelphia. Actually, well, Philadelphia rolled out all of their back end players last year, right? Remember that? And the Celtics won by 50 at the Garden. I want to say it was something ridiculous like that. But that game, I remember thinking back to it going, the Celtics, yes, they started their starters, right? It was the Celtics starters, the championship starters coming off the championship, right? I mean, just a couple games ago, they won the championship versus the Sixers backline guys, right? I mean, the back end of the rotation. What did that game tell us at the beginning? It was like, oh, wow, the Celtics are whooping their ass. Like, okay, we knew this was coming. It's like, okay, the Sixers, some of these back end of the rotation players get some run against some championship starters. Maybe that's a little valuable, right? But ultimately, between the two teams, I go, well, this was a moment the Sixers could have thrown out their roster against a legitimate championship squad who actually played their guys that night. The Celtics played all their guys, and I believe maybe Horford, Porzingis, I mean, they were out every other game last year, but the Celtics played their guys, the Sixers didn't. I want to see this preseason game on Sunday be a game where both teams play some guys, right? It doesn't have to be everybody. I imagine somebody's going to sit out, but I don't want to see a completely lopsided game. That's why, the first two games, say game one was a little lopsided. The Grizzlies didn't play anybody. The Celtics played some of their guys. Tonight's game was a little more evenly matched. The Raptors didn't play their starters. The Celtics didn't play, I mean, three of their better rotation players. And then, of course, guys checked out in the third quarter. But on Sunday, I want to see it be evenly matched. I don't want to see any lopsided nonsense. I don't want to see the Celtics sit everybody and wait until the final preseason game. And Andrew, I completely agree with your point. It's about the urgency. Every game, every minute on an NBA basketball floor is an opportunity for somebody, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach trying to get their players in the right line for success later on down the line.
It's a learning opportunity. Make the mistakes now, make the mistakes within that lineup now to then learn what you need to improve on and put a plan in course, because these things take time to adapt to fix, to grow into. And sometimes, when you don't have that urgency right off the bat, it's kind of hard to instill that urgency later on in the season when guys are banged up, when teams are losing, when you don't have that as much motivation in the beginning of the season, because teams have motivation in the beginning, but can you instill kind of that mindset? And we talk about all the time, habit at the beginning of the season, and that identity that then carries you throughout the season when you don't necessarily have that motivation or that carries you in the beginning.
I'm with you.
It's that identity that the Celtics, it's like,
right.
It's still there.
Yeah, you have to find it right off the bat. You have to.
But really, I'll point this out when it comes to Joe Mazzulla's tenure. This will be the first time he really takes a team that is not completely molded to win the championship and take them and form a specific identity within that locker room.
Right, I like that.
Because those teams already, I understand Joe Mazzulla brought identity and culture to specifically last year's and the year before's locker room. 2022-23 was a little messy because that was his first year. Ime Udoka out, Joe Mazzulla in. But now, right, like those teams, in my mind, a lot of veterans, right? They knew they were competing. The identity was kind of there. It's kind of there, right? Joe Mazzulla added on to that identity. Now there's going to be a complete molding, meshing, and creating of an identity from Joe Mazzulla, the coaching staff, the Boston Celtics front office, and of course, the players on court. It started in these first two games. And it, of course, continues on Sunday against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
And maybe that's why you start Simons. Maybe that's why you start Boucher, and maybe not go Hauser, Pritchard, or maybe you do start Pritchard. And I just mean like you go make a drastic change where you're like, hey, I'm separating us from the banner when we won our banner. I'm separating us when we played last year. Like we're a new team. We're a different identity. And so how do you make that drastic change where you're really just because I'll say it, when I played and then I came into the team that won a national championship. And so the season after that, you got guys coming in that think they were part of that team, that think that they just won a championship, and then you also have the expectations set to go win that championship. And so it's about creating just a different identity, a different identity that you can take pride in and perform in day out, rather than leaning on the past of what was. And I think that's why maybe you do start a Simons or have a fresh lineup that looks different from your Celtics rotation.
I agree. I think that's like, you don't want to hang on to the past, right? Where it's like, okay. And again, this is a great opportunity. These next two games are great opportunities at home to test now the waters, right? Because it feels like these first two was just kind of like, okay, like here's here's a little sample size. Like, no, I want the whole turkey, Joe. Give me the whole turkey. It's Thanksgiving and I'm hungry, like I want and maybe even some gravy and stuffing while you're at it, right? I want all of it. I don't want my apps, right? I'm gonna pass. I'm enough bread. All right, I'm enough the bread. I want the turkey now. Like, give me the meat. So that's where I'm at. I agree. I'm with you guys. Sunday, good opportunity to test the waters. Hopefully, maybe give me some of that turkey, Joe. I'm hungry.
Ramp it up.
Yeah, ramp it up. Let's start ramping up. The season getting closer. But guys, as for tonight, the Boston Celtics, they fell short to the Toronto Raptors. 107-105 was your final score from Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Canada. The Celtics, they're going to be back in action, back at the TD Garden for the first time this season. Catch that game. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, after the final buzz is over there, come right back here to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel for CTW Postgame Live. That again, so final buzzer at 7 at the TD Garden. Have you covered, guys? If you're not already following us or subscribe to us on our YouTube, do that right now. While you're at that, turn on the post notifications and you'll get notified the second we go live here at CTW. Again, guys, all of us here, I'm your host, Robbie, alongside me, my co-host, Andrew Quinn and Seamus Zarlingo, and Justin Lowe with his old dusty laptop. From all of us here, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, you know the deal. Go Celtics.